What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp here for the Fightful.com podcast for August 31st, brought to you by DraftBeast.com and on it. DraftBeast.com. Go there. Lose all your money to me. That's what's going to happen. It's inevitable. Do it. DraftBeast.com this football season. I'm a huge fantasy football player. I don't need to pitch it to you anymore. Just go, get out your wallet if you want to. I can send you my physical P.O. box, and you can just mail me money if you would rather do that as opposed to losing in embarrassing fashion on DraftBeast.com. Also, on it, if you guys didn't check out Donald Cerrone's appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast last night, which I will talk a little bit about later, he talked about how he never used supplements before and how On It has completely changed his life. You go to Fightful.com/podcast, open up any of our pages, click that On It link, check out their equipment, their apparel, and their supplements. All kinds of cool stuff there. I am joined by Showdown Joe. Joe, how the hell are you?
I'm doing fine, but I'm beginning to get a little tired of you taking your frustrations out on our viewership to get on a DraftBeast.com so you can take their money. So I'm not a football guy, so some way, somehow, I may have to sign up, follow your ass on that site. I was going to say I'm taking your money, but I'm so probably bad at football.
I'm nagging the people.
I might have to jump in.
I'm nagging the people at DraftBeast to get some MMA going. Then it's really on.
Man. They have to.
Yeah,
well, I can't wait. For those that don't know, you were part of something pretty big beforehand, before it actually got brought up. So you know your thing. So there's got to be some way, somehow, to get, and because MMA fantasy is big, man, and I'm sure the peeps at DraftBeast probably looking at it from what do you think, like a logistics perspective, but it can be done. I
think it was more about having live results, which we can provide them with. We'd be more than happy to help our friends at DraftBeast out with that. But yeah, I wrote for Countermove for a while. They were eventually bought out by complete scum. Don't visit DraftKings. They're terrible, horrible, no good people. They probably fight babies in the streets. Go to DraftBeast instead. Even though, maybe some of our viewers might use DraftKings. I can't say anything that's going to get us sued, so I don't think they really fight babies in the streets. But DraftBeast is where you want to be. But yeah, I'm hoping we get that going. Joe, we've got some pretty big, under the radar, big MMA news today. Joe Silva, who has been with the UFC for 21 years, is leaving possibly as soon as the end of this year.
Doesn't surprise me, to be honest with you. I mean, he's
wanted to leave for a long time.
Yes and no. But we all know. Listen, man, when this sale happened, we knew there was going to be changes. And Joe Silva's been around since day one with Zuffa. So these types of changes are going to happen. I mean, how long is it going to be until we realize Dana White is going to walk away? There's going to be more than a changing of the guard, a passing of the torch with this organization. It's going to be interesting looking. People, I can already tell you right now, Sean, that people are going to look back and say, "Oh, it was way better when Dana White was there and Joe Silva and the matchmaking and blah, blah, blah." Right? I mean, matchmaking is a science. To some, it seems like it's a basic thing. Just who's available, put them together, and have them sign the contracts and have them fight 12 weeks out. There's a little bit of a science to it. There is math behind it. I mean, if you ever try and do it yourself, not you yourself, Sean, but people in general, man, you need a spreadsheet going. You need some serious looking at who fights who, where are they fought, when are they fighting, who's available. There's a lot of stuff that gets involved. But with Joe Silva, potentially leaving, doesn't really surprise me at all. Although, depending on how much money he's made over the past, not 20 years, but for a while, wondering how much money he's got saved up. And what's he going to do next?
Apparently nothing. Apparently his desires are to retire and spend time with his family, as he made quite a bit of money off of that UFC sale. Now, I know I was told when I was poking around today that he makes in the six figures, obviously, with the UFC. The numbers given around this sale were around like $200,000 a year, which that's just base pay. That doesn't include, anything else additional that the UFC likes to throw on there. But another thing I wonder, Who gets his spot? You think Sean Shelby moves up from the lighter weight divisions and takes over his role as the main matchmaker?
If Sean Shelby stays on, because he is a Joe Silva protege, the answer is obviously yes. He would take the reins and likely become the head matchmaker for the UFC. And I already know, I can already think of a few names at the top of my head that would already jump underneath Sean. Or if Sean was to leave,
who are they?
The various parties that could jump in there. No one that people know right now off the top here, like that just people in the background. But there's some good people out there. You got to think of people that were, with Strikeforce at the time, are potentially now with Bellator. Guys that were originally with Bellator, no longer there, could potentially come over to the UFC. There's been a few people that have tried to become matchmakers overseas for Sean and for Joe to deal with more of the international market that could become, hey, move to Vegas and take it from here. So there's probably a lot of people that could jump into that role. Will they be like Joe Silva? Probably not. Will they be like Sean? Likely not. But there are some good candidates out there that I believe could jump in there and do the job pretty quick.
We speculated Dana White maybe eventually leaving. But I wonder, Scott Coker has created twice now a free agent market in MMA. Would this create a bidding war for his services? Or do you think they have somebody in mind that would run this? He has ran a couple of MMA companies, but he's got a different kind of vision than a lot of places. Now, granted, he seems like the kind of guy whose vision will adapt to his surroundings type of thing. Like if he were in the UFC, I get the feeling that his vision would be much different than if he's a Bellator and he's got to go about things a bit differently. Do you think there's ever a chance, and this is just me throwing something out there, ever a chance that they approach him about something like that?
Well, you never say never, right? That's definitely an option. I think there's a bit of an autonomy that he likes to have and a vision for what he likes to see. He's getting a lot of that play under Viacom with Bellator. Would he get something like that under the new regime of the UFC? It'd be kind of awkward because they had him there for a year and he couldn't do anything. He didn't do anything for a year, obviously because of the sale and stuff like that. But who knows? I mean, if you're looking at someone that would replace Dana White, the one guy that comes to my mind right away is Chael Sonnen. So, it remains to be seen what'll happen with that. But I think Chael Sonnen would be a fantastic promoter. It's a different world. I mean, Chael thinks he can do it, probably could, but to do what Dana White did, it's extremely difficult. It'd have to be someone that has the brashness to, I said it before, Sean, you got to be a spin doctor. You got to be a spin doctor when you're a promoter, and there's no better king, and no offense to Don King, but there's no better king when it comes to promotion and spin doctoring, anything and everything that has to do with the UFC than Dana White. But if there's someone that can do it, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Chael would be fantastic for it.
I think that would be a good move too. By the way, guys, under our exclusive section at Fightful.com, we have an interview with Chael Sonnen. We're going to have several more stories from that up probably ahead of UFC 204, 205, the Dan Henderson fight, 204. There you go. Some more stuff out of that. We'll approach some more MMA headlines here. Alistair Overeem thinks that Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor are lying about how much they make. I think that if he believes that, he probably needs a new agent, Joe.
Now, is he saying that because – well, first things first. I mean, you never really know. So go ahead.
He says, my answer to that, to Mayweather and Conor, let me see some bank statements. You can talk, you can say it, you can put it out there in tweets, but let me see a bank statement that says UFC wired X amount of money because it's always going to be this way. People lie. It's a 21st century. Social media is fake.
So he's saying that they're embellishing their numbers.
Well, I mean, we have seen Conor McGregor's base pay, and it's the most in UFC history. That's his base pay. That's before pay-per-views. That's before Reebok gives him whatever amount that they're giving him, because you know that Conor McGregor has had that conversation. I'm not wearing this shit unless you all reimburse me properly to wear this shit. So you know that conversation has already been had, and we haven't heard about it. So apparently Reebok was like, okay, whatever. So I'm inclined to believe, and now Conor McGregor has never said, hey, I made this much money. He has said, I've made around this much money.
I believe it. I mean, I mean, even if he's embellishing it, it doesn't matter. He's making so much money right now. That it doesn't matter. Hey, I made $4 million. Well, maybe he made $2.5 million, or I made $9 million. Well, maybe he made $6 million, or maybe he's saying it's lower. It doesn't matter. The guy's bringing in a killing. And the same, Floyd, don't even talk about Mayweather. I mean, the money that guy makes is unbelievable. And of course, good on him, because that dude knows how to promote fights. And we can go back to the Canelo fight. And most people know me well enough that I am not the biggest boxing guy anymore. I was huge into boxing before I saw Hoist Gracie choke out Ken Shamrock. That's when my boxing, sort of following of boxing, went down. But I did pay very close attention to a lot of Mayweather fights. And that Canelo fight was one of those fights. You watch those, I don't remember if it was on HBO or Showtime, but you watch those sort of 24/7 series. You pay attention to what Mayweather was saying, what he was doing, how they were promoting it, how they were selling it. And you know, I think I forgot who had the best tweet that night after the fight. And I think it was referring to Mayweather when they said, even the devil showed he didn't exist. Something of that effect. But he convinced the public that Canelo was a real fight, and that Canelo was, a big draw, and Canelo was going to hurt him, and it's the toughest fight of his life. In reality, what we saw was just a complete dominant Floyd Mayweather in that fight, to the point where you're like, oh my God, like what just happened here? We all got fleeced. And that's what Mayweather does in a lot of his fights. At the same time, McGregor has taken that sort of, I'm going to sell this nonstop. And you look at what Sonnen did in the past. So you do that, you make a lot of money, and it's a boatload of money. And whether Overeem believes it or not, and remember, Overeem operates in a different frequency than most people. This is a heavyweight that at one point was about to hold I had a chance to hold all three of those belts, to become that one guy that held all the big belts in MMA. Bad dude, really bad dude. But at the same time, career-wise, he's made a boatload of money too from K1 and stuff like that. So I don't know what he's talking about, but I think McGregor and Mayweather are probably telling more truth than they're not telling truth.
UFC fighter Augusto Montano had tested positive for the drug in and out of competition for clenbuterol, rather, in an out-of-competition drug test on May 19th, but will not be sanctioned for the failure, as USADA announced today. Another clenbuterol failure that is going untouched. What is this? They did like some get into the gummy Flintstone vitamins or something, Joe? I see you with your face in your hands there.
I don't get it, dude. It's clenbuterol, man. Like, clenbuterol is a synthetic, obviously performance-enhancing drug. It's how did it get in your system? If you're saying it didn't get in your, well, I don't know what he's saying, but at the same time, it's like, well, who was it that had the Chinese meat?
I think it was a couple of Chinese fighters, actually.
Right? Like, come on, man. It's clenbuterol. This is not something that I'm not buying that, okay, I get, you convinced me otherwise last time or a couple times ago, Sean, that, yeah, it was in the meat sort of thing, blah, blah, fine. It's clenbuterol, man. This is stuff is designed to get you ripped and get you to recover nonstop. So if he failed it, why isn't he getting suspended? And they got to explain more about what's happening with some of these suspensions or non-suspensions. I'm not getting it, man.
It's really, really unusual. Like, it's a real gray area. And it's like everybody that fails for it, they're just like, yeah, well, so what? Makes me feel a little uneasy about a lot of this stuff. It's just like, it's very unusual. Like how, I'm speechless regarding this. We talked about Joe Silva, by the way, leaving. One of the last memories of pre-Zuffa UFC, right? We get another one of those fighting this weekend on a UFC Fight Night card in Josh Barnett. Now, granted, he took quite a bit of time away, but a pre-Zuffa UFC fighter. He's facing Andrei Arlovsky, not the most star-studded event that you will ever see in your life, but a pretty solid main event for UFC Fight Pass, Joe.
I like it. Then again, I'm a huge UFC fan, a huge MMA fan. If I get it, anytime I can see an MMA bout, whether it's the grassroots level or the UFC, I'm going to watch it anyways. But I like the fight. I think it's fantastic. And it's just, which Josh Barnett shows up. I mean, that loss to Ben Rothwell was sort of a, okay. The Roy Nelson thing, despite that thing going 5 rounds, He still beat Roy Nelson, and we can say what we want about Roy Nelson. That loss to Travis Brown, though, in 2013 was sort of a many of us kind of were like, wait a second, is this the end of Josh Barnett? And, he did take quite a bit of time off, comes back against Roy Nelson, wins, and then a few months later takes on Rothwell and loses. Was it to like a Google platter or something like
that? Who, to Ben Rothwell, that front choke that he did?
Okay, all right. Okay.
Weird. It was an unusual. Let me look up the name of it because I think there was a different name to it. Because Rothwell, it was a choke that Rothwell, I guess, had really worked on a lot in preparation for him. A go-go choke. Because he got it with Mitch. He got Mitrione with it too. Okay, all right. So, and that's not something that you would ever think Josh Barnett would ever tap to, because Josh Barnett in his catch wrestling is absolutely fantastic and has an unbelievable submission game, ground game, a sort of different way of looking at the way most, I guess, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys or submission wrestlers go after it. I mean, Josh's theories on catch wrestling is fantastic, but it's still, he's taking on Andre Arlovsky, and these are both guys that are, long in the tooth sort of thing, but it's still going to be a great fight. It's heavyweights. These dudes are skilled. So, and we could say it doesn't have this card doesn't have the star power. It doesn't, but there are some really good fights on there. There are. I'm excited to check out the show. Hopefully I can check it out that day. Got kind of a bachelor party thing going on that day, so hopefully I can do that. I've got a break in between the rehearsal and the bachelor party, and I'm hoping I can fit that in. Just a programming note for you guys. Joe and I will not be on the podcast this weekend because of that, so we're going to make that up hopefully early on in the week. That way you all can get your Sean and Joe fix, because I know you all need it. But we will have full coverage of the UFC Fight Night show from Hamburg, Germany on Fightful.com. Carlos Toro will be doing that. We also have Alexander Gustafsson returning to the cage against Jan Blachowicz. Did I pronounce that right? I know I didn't.
I think you did. I think that was fantastic. Good job, bud.
Hot damn. How do you think this one's going? What do you expect to see out of Gustafsson taking on, I think, an unranked guy, maybe 14 or 15 if he is ranked? Let me check.
There's only one expectation, though, with Gustafsson. He's got to win. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to win. At this point here, you've had these title shots. That's it, bud. You want another one? You have to win. Do I see him winning this fight? 100%. Not 100%, excuse me. 99%. Because anything can happen in MMA. We all know that. But I definitely see him. If there is one guy on that UFC roster that has to, continue to fight to remain relevant, to hopefully step in there during a title fight or a potential interim title fight, it is Alexander Gustafsson. So it'll be interesting to see how he shows up on the 3rd of September. But I think he wins this fight, Sean. But yeah, what am I expecting? He's got to win, dude. You got to win. I can't see him losing. And what does he do after that? He's not going to cut down to middleweight. Not going to fight at heavyweight, I don't think.
Yeah, this is a must-win for Alexander Gustafsson. Absolutely must-win, because this is a guy who has contemplated quitting the sport altogether. You see that now more than ever. Young guys just willing to quit. Anthony Johnson, he's admitted he's only got a few more years in the sport. He said he doesn't want to be fighting at 35. Ben Henderson said he doesn't want to be fighting after 34. Alexander Gustafsson, if he lost this fight, it would be a monumental setback for him. Like, talking way back of the line. He's been very fortunate that John Jones has still been running things at the top of the UFC's light heavyweight division, even though he's gone, because Alexander Gustafsson gave him his closest fight. Now, granted, John Jones did not train for that fight, like hardly at all, according to Brendan Schaub. He showed up at camp way out of shape, if I remember correctly. But Alexander Gustafsson has been able to hold on to that. He got beat by Anthony Johnson. He got beat by Daniel Cormier. It's crazy to think Alexander Gustafsson has won one fight in 3.5 years. One fight. And it's against Jimmy Manuwa, a guy who he should have beaten. So the crazy thing is, it's not that unreasonable to think that Gustafsson will lose this fight, especially at light heavyweight, where the leather being thrown is a little heavier than other weight divisions. But yeah, this could be a big setback for Gustafsson, Joe.
I can't see him losing the fight to To be honest with you, because if you look at those 3 losses, and yeah, he's got 3 losses in his last 4 fights. Look at who he's lost to. We mentioned it: Daniel Cormier, Anthony Johnson, and John Jones, right? The 1, 2, and 3 of the division. We all know Alexander's number 4, and he's got to retain that number 4 in reality, right? So this is his own. He's at the point now where his belt, his championship, is that number 4 spot in the division, and he's got to continue to defend it over and over again. That's his belt. That's his title. He's got to continue to make sure that nobody supersedes him and just continues to win. If he continues to win, especially with finishes, he will stay in that spot, because right now those 3 gentlemen, and John Jones, Daniel Cormier, and Anthony Johnson, they run that division. We can say John Jones runs that division, but he's not fighting right now. We got to wait till he comes back. DC has the strap. He is the champion. He technically runs that division. Anthony Johnson, we saw what he did to Glover. He's right there, right? He's already fought DC once. He's likely going to get that rematch. I can't see it not happening, but he's about to get that rematch. So, it all depends on what happens there. But we got to remember what, like you said, what Gustafsson did to John Jones that night in Toronto was unbelievable. Whether John Jones trained or not is not Alexander's fault. That he did what he had to do. He showed up at the Air Canada Center and put on. He gave John an ass whooping that night. It was fantastic to see both guys go back and forth and show that kind of heart. It was, the stuff that we're going to tell our grandkids one day. And then he goes and he fights Daniel Cormier. So let's remember, he lost by split decision. He could be wearing that belt today. Okay, so that's how close he is to that upper echelon of that division. Unfortunately, you and I do the math, Sean. He's lost 3 or 4. He's defeated Jimmy Manoa. That was a second round, TKO or something like that?
Yeah.
Look at that.
One win since 2013 started.
Yeah, right? But he takes out Jimmy Manoa. I think Blachowicz is actually I'm not saying it's going to be it's a different fight, but I think Jimmy was a bit more dangerous at that time than Giannis right now.
I completely agree. But, it's the UFC, so as we've seen, anything can happen. Ryan Bader versus Ilir Latifi. I have one question. Quick and painless or long and torturous? Because that's how this fight's going to play out, one of 2 ways.
I don't think it's going to be long and painless.
You mean
this one? Sorry, say again.
You said long and painless. There's nothing painless about a long fight between these two. It's going to be really bad if it goes 3 rounds.
I concur.
Real bad.
I concur, but I don't think it'll go past 7 minutes. If this thing goes past midway the second round, we got to get up and either make more popcorn, crack another beer, or make a coffee if you're me. I mean, this thing, just the way they match up, yeah, you're right. It could be ugly, but I think it could be over pretty quick.
Man, this fight might be so bad that it's entertaining. As far as boring. It's going to be either one of them's going to land a big shot, or it's going to be a bunch of just laying up against the cage and
If that's how the fight goes down, Sean, I'm texting you nonstop until you say, "I hate you, Showdown Joe."
Not looking forward to that fight. It could end up being a great fight. Watch it end up being fight of the century. These two just go out, slug it out, and head movement everywhere and counters. I doubt it. Also on the main card, which technically everything's the main card. So I don't know why they do that, the main card prelims thing. Nick Hein versus Tai Hyun Bang, the Korean Cowboy. I'm going to pretend that I know anything about the Korean Cowboy because I don't. He's been very hit or miss. I know that much. I remember he lost to Cajun Johnson. He beat Cajun Johnson because that was a really good fight 2 years ago. That's it. I don't really recall much else from him. He's been on the preliminary portion of so many of these fight cards. Now he's getting on the main card of I use that term very loosely. Any fireworks to be expected out of this fight? Anything we should be looking for out of these 2 guys?
I think so. I think it's going to be a damn good fight because it's Nick Hines' territory, right? This is if anything, this is a I hate saying it like this, but it's a showcase of Nick Hein, right? Nick Hein, here you go. Do what you got to do. Do it in front of your peeps. Get it done. Show that you're a strong lightweight. and then make some noise after the fight. I think that's the plan here. If you're the UFC trying to promote Nick Hein, although Cowboy can probably spoil that, but I think this is a showcase of Nick Hein in Germany, and we'll see what happens. But I like Hein. I think he's a fantastic fighter. It remains to be seen, if he can bring it, in front of all the peeps. I think he can. I think he will. But I think, like I said, it's a showcase fight for him.
Also, a little under the radar, Ashley Evans Smith, number 13, 135-pound fighter, at just 4-1 career. She is a top 15 bantamweight, and she beat Marion Renault, so maybe deserved. She's facing Veronica, I think it's Macedo from Venezuela, undefeated fighter. I don't know anything about Macedo. I wish I did. I can say that about a lot of people in this card. Not often where I come into a show and it's like, I don't know a lot about anybody on the show, but this is one of those shows where they're showcasing a lot of, I don't want to say inexperienced talent, but a lot of newer talent, a lot of talent that hasn't been exposed so much, at least here. And of course you have guys like Jim Wallhead who are showing up there. He's been trying to get to the UFC for a while, if I remember correctly. But the first scheduled fight, is one that I see as interesting. Leandro Silva, Rustam Khabilov. I think that'll be a good fight.
How is this the first fight of the night? I don't understand that. This fight should, number one, be on the preliminary card. Number one. Because Khabilov and Silva, first of all, Rustam Khabilov is a bad man, okay? Let's just forget his record. This dude's awesome, okay? He's taking on Leandro Silva, who's a bad dude as well. And this is kicking off the show?
First fight, first scheduled fight. Yes. The first fight of the whole show. Out of 11 fights, Khabilov and Silva are the first fight.
I get it. I get it why it's not on the main card, Sean. You got to have 4 fights for the television audience. I get it. But that fight's got to be...
You got to put Hein on the main card. You do. I'm cool 100%. With that.
Latifi, I get because of the Swedish thing. A lot of Swedish peeps are going to be heading on over there. But Khabilov doesn't deserve to be where he is on this card. He needs to be way higher than that. Again, who am I to say? Maybe this is the reason why Joe Silva left. He doesn't have a say anymore.
Yeah. Well, Khabilov has won 2 in a row. Leandro Silva won 4, or he's only got 1 loss in his last 5 fights. 2 guys that have earned their spot. But I understand, you get those 3, I don't want to say big fights, but because Latifi, Bader, despite their rankings, it is a top 15 fight. But nobody's like, damn, I can't wait for that Ilir Latifi versus Ryan Bader throwdown on Saturday. But yeah, I understand why it's on the prelims. But man, the first one, maybe they're wanting to kick it off with a bang, something of that nature. I don't know.
But the arena better be full.
Yeah. It's a good point. It's a very good point. And if it's anything like it is in America, it won't be. It won't be until like 2 fights into the main card. It's so weird to me. But that's what happens when you run shows in Vegas and like the high rollers get the tickets that are, that's just the way it works. That's just the way it works, unfortunately. So I watched the Donald Cerrone. I've watched most of it. The Donald Cerrone interview with Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience yesterday, which of course I knew was going to be interesting. And they're getting progressively more drunk as this thing goes on, which you can imagine is great. Aside from speaking great things of Onnit, one of our sponsors, Donald Cerrone mentioned that he no longer spars, period. He says that people oftentimes try to get him to spar. There's a full story on it on Fightful.com under our MMA section, guys. But said that around the Dos Anjos fight, he decided that it was time to stop sparring because he didn't know how many big shots he had left in him. And he said, do you know how many wars I've been in the gym with Leonard Garcia? And he was like, I'm done with those. And he said that he'll spar with somebody like Joe Schilling because he trusts him and they keep a good pace. But he's not interested in sparring with somebody who's trying to make a name for himself at Jackson Winklejohn. or at the ranch or anything like that. He's not into that. What do you think of this? We hear about it a lot more. Robbie Lawler has said it. By the way, we'll talk about those two in a bit. We're getting a lot more people that aren't sparring. And Cerrone said drilling is the most important thing. What's your take on that?
At the level that Donald Cerrone is at right now, I applaud him. I applaud him 100% because he's absolutely, in my opinion, 100% correct. How much more do you have left? You can't be taking those shots anymore. We've all heard the long history and the whole shoot-a-box back in the day, how these guys used to kick the living crap out of each other before they even got to Japan and Pride. And by the time they got there, they're so susceptible to they're just getting knocked out in sparring. For the most part, it doesn't have to be that hard. But I do get it. I've seen some sparring sessions in so many gyms across North America where I'm like, Jesus, these guys should be getting paid for this right now. This is amazing. These guys are beating the crap out of each other. And I've also seen technical sessions like, from in the same gyms. Like sometimes Faraz will slow things down or sometimes he'll be like, let him go. They got to let it out. Let him go. Man, this guy's going to get injured, right? So I've seen it before. So good on Donald Cerrone for realizing, okay, you know what? Or could he be hiding something where it's like, man, this one time I was sparring and blah, blah, before the Dos Anjos fight, I got messed up. I got knocked out. I haven't recovered in time. Now I'm fighting for the belt. Finally get my title
Speaking
shot.
of that, let me tell you about this situation that he brought up. He said that he got really scared, and one of the reasons why he did that, he was brushing his teeth in his bathroom. Also, he says this is one of the reasons he takes on it now, by the way, guys. Fightful.com/podcast. Click those links. He said he was brushing his teeth and he just fell over into the wall. He stood up and he fell over into the other wall. And he started to think, oh, shit, I've got a concussion. I'm messed up for life. What's going on? We've seen this in pro wrestling a lot lately. 20 years ago, we would have never seen it. Bret Hart was really one of the first people that I remember that had to end his career because of a concussion, which makes you wonder, with the harder rings and the styles that used to be worked, I wonder how many guys worked for so long with concussions and caused long-term problems. But now several guys can't wrestle because of concussions. Christian, Daniel Bryan, Corey Graves. So Donald Cerrone was fearing he was in that category. Like, I can't compete ever again. Who was it just a couple years ago? Was supposed to fight for the lightweight title. TJ Grant.
Yep.
He may be done forever. He doesn't want to come back. He said that he went to the doctor, got a bunch of MRIs, CAT scans. As it turned out, he had a really bad deviated septum that caused him to have a sinus infection so bad that it screwed up his equilibrium. But he said that that was one of the reasons he was like, okay, I need to supplement. I need to stop sparring. This is what I need to do. Says that he has to, and I feel I've got a deviated septum as well. Nose has been broken many times. It can be a struggle. Never had one to reach that situation, but if you're dealing with like vertigo and things of that nature, hell yeah, that's going to make you want to stop sparring. It's going to make you want to stop or change a lot the way you do a lot of things. It seems like over the past year between, and I'm not trying to plug on it here, between supplementation, weight, the way he trains, the sinus thing, Donald Cerrone's had like a real roller coaster of like just evaluating the way that he approaches his career, Joe.
I think it's the evolution of a person getting a little bit older and smartening up right now and realizing I am not bulletproof anymore. I'm not in my, early to mid 20s where I can take on the world and take an absolute beating and do whatever I want. And now the mileage is beginning to show, and he's self-reflecting and self-realizing, this isn't good. This is this is the path that I chose, but now it's beginning to have its repercussions. I got to slow this down. Number one, stop sparring. Number two, props to On It for helping him out, for having the right products. But it is something that a lot of fighters, sometimes they don't know how to stop. They don't know how to get rid of, because the ego will always get the better of you, no matter what you do. Sean, I'm 42 years old, okay? I still think I can squat rack upon rack. You load that bar up and I can squat it. Yet I was moving a box today at my buddy's place, turning around, grabbed it, moved around. I thought my ACL just went pop. It's just the body saying, you're done, dude. You can't do. I'll be doing, who Joe Valtellini is? Bazooka Joe. He was the, not K1.
Yeah. He follows me on Twitter,
welterweight
of
champ.
course.
What's that?
He follows me on Twitter.
There you go. So Bazooka Joe, he lives about, I don't know, 30 minutes from me, and we're just shooting the breeze. And he's, he knows, obviously MMA guy, saw me on TV forever, and here he is. He's the welterweight champion for Glory, and we're shooting the breeze. I said, you know what, dude? I need a Muay Thai workout. I need something good. Give me something that's 10 rounds. 35 minutes, 30 minutes. He's like, don't worry, but I'll text you or I'll email you. He sends me this workout, and it's fantastic, Sean. It's combinations, but everything ends in a low kick. Okay, so whether it's jab, cross, hook, right low kick, jab, cross, knee, or something, everything ends in a low kick. I'm third round in, and my left knee is like, dude, your knee's gonna pop here. What's going on here? I could do that 5 days a week after lifting weights and sparring jits. I could have did that workout with my eyes closed, soaking wet in my 20s. Now, I get to a third round, and these are 3-minute rounds. It's embarrassing, Sean. I'm in the 7th or 8th minute, and I'm like, I think my knee's about to pop.
Oh, you should have seen me. You should have seen me in 5-minute rounds the first time I went back to MMA class about a month ago. Oh my God. It was a show, is what it was. I was in a bad way. Also, rumors have been circulating over the past week or so. We reported it in our Rumors Are Flying section last week. Donald Cerrone, Robbie Lawler, maybe UFC 205 in New York. If that happens, don't book anything else. That's the only fight you need on the show, the whole show. That's it. Just set them up. No prelims. 5-rounder. We're good. I'll pay the money. UFC. Don't waste my time. Run it at 7 p.m. Eastern. That way I don't have to be up all night. Just let them go. What do you think, Joe?
How can I possibly have a counter argument for that?
Just let them go.
These guys are just insane. And to see those two inside the octagon would be absolutely sick. I mean, I'd be scared for both of them because they're just such good dudes, and they've always treated me like with just absolute class. And I get picked on. I'm sure you know the stories. I get picked on every so often, being a short Canadian, bald head guy, whatever. But these guys were always fantastic. I've known Robbie for a long time. Like, I'm talking back when he fought Nick Diaz in the UFC days. I mean, good dude. And Cerrone has always got something witty to say. Some of the craziest interviews. But they're still professional fighters when I'm not interviewing them. And to see those two guys potentially get matched up in the octagon, can you imagine the fireworks? And who knows what they would both do? I mean, they beat the crap out of each other, but they'd probably high five after every third or fourth combination that they would land. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, I would love that fight. I think it's a great fight. Another funny thing that Donald Cerrone said, he was like, because Joe Rogan was like, do not go back to 155. And Cerrone said, yeah, it's hard. It's very hard to go to 155. Ideally, I'd be at 165 if that were a weight division. And I wish it were, but I know, well, I don't know. They've got when you look at the roster, they've got like 100 welterweights, 100 lightweights. So I don't think it would dilute it that much. I just think the other guys would step up. Now, he said that when he was at 155, he would always call Dana White, Joe Silva, Lorenzo Fertitta, and be like, this 170 guy fell out, I'll fight him. And Dana White would tell him, no, these guys are effing monsters. You don't want them. And now that he's like, oh, I want to fight at 155, they're like, no, you look so good. You got to stay at 170. So, yeah, a fascinating interview. I cover so much pro wrestling and MMA that oftentimes while I'm working or while I'm not working, I just want to watch anything but. But I often find myself watching that Joe Rogan podcast, and Donald Cerrone on anything is very entertaining. A very underrated, people think that kind of because he's got the cowboy thing and he says some stuff that is ill-advised, that he's not a smart dude. He's a very smart dude, incredibly smart dude. So yeah, really great stuff out of them. Also worth mentioning, Travis Brown was interviewed ahead of his fight next weekend, said that Ronda Rousey is in a good place mentally and physically. Have you heard anything, Joe, maybe that leads you to believe that is true or maybe false?
No, I've heard the same sort of stuff. I think she's like I said, we talked about it last time. She's regrouped. She went through what that very few people will ever understand. Maybe you can empathize, but you'll never truly understand to go through what she went through. It's hard, man. I felt so bad for her, especially. I remember watching that fight and thought, oh man, you're on top of the world. It's over right now. Like right now, you think your life is over, and it's not. It just sucks. It just sucks. But yeah, she's in a better place right now, and good for her. And and man, when she comes back, it's going to be absolutely amazing. It's going to be so big for the sport. It's going to be fantastic. And she just, like I said, she had to clean stuff up, man. There's that old saying from a House of Pain album. Clean up your own backyard before you go knocking on your neighbor's door. She had to clean up her backyard. She had to clean everything up, get all that shit in her head out of there, get positive again, and get back to what you're doing, what you're great at, what you love doing, which is training, fighting, kicking ass, and then getting back there, getting back into the cage and try and win that belt back. So as long as you have the right people around her, and her mom was probably very supportive, but probably said, hey, man, get your shit together. Let's go. Come on. Get some money here.
Her mom is great.
Yeah.
Her mom is great. Like, normally I would advise people against having parents in like advisory or management roles. Oh, not Ronda Rousey's mom. Ronda Rousey's mom gets it. Ronda Rousey's mom has seen it. She knows. And the thing I admire about her is, despite the fact that her daughter is one of the most famous athletes in the world, not just in the UFC, in the world, she's not afraid to speak her mind, whether it's about Travis Brown, whether it's about Edmund, whether it's about anybody. She is very open to speaking about that. Also worth noting, Marcin Held was released from Bellator, signed with the UFC. Well, not released. His contract was up with Bellator. Signed with the UFC. A very underrated signing. Hey, I love leg lock guys. I love toe hold guys. This is one of those guys. And he's fighting, I think, Diego Sanchez. That's a hell of a fight.
Yeah, but okay, let me ask you a question, though. Let me ask you a question. I know I didn't mean to cut you off there because I know I love leg lock guys. I love toe hold guys. What goes through your mind when you see that hold get locked in? Because I know when I see a heel hook go in there, if I'm on my couch, I'm like, oh my God, there goes his knee. I get so nervous because I've had both knees and both ankles, not destroyed, but messed up to the point where, back in the day, you can't do leg locks during jit sparring. It's just a no-no. And if you got caught doing it, you're about to go with a black belt that was going to smash your face into the wall while he was choking you. So let me ask you, when you see those leg locks go down or they're fighting down there 50-50, what goes through your head?
Tap, quick. That's what I do in practice, but that's because I want to walk. I'm not fighting. Just do it. Now, at the UFC level, they're not going to do that. They're going to try to roll out. They're going to try to step over, all that good stuff. But
now, before you say tap,
it's Diego Sanchez. Diego Sanchez is fighting him.
I know. What happens when you saw a Husmar Palhares fight and he grabs a hold of someone's leg and he just starts cranking? What goes through your mind then?
Why'd you take the fight? Why'd you sign? Why'd you do it? You knew what was going to happen. Although Husmar Palhares got some justice recently. He got knocked out by Email Weber-Meek, who got signed by the UFC in turn. UFC does that on occasion. Like, if you remember back in the day when Kimbo was a big deal and Sean Gannon fought him and beat him, then the UFC signed him. So, I mean, they've done that a couple times. And, yeah, pretty interesting take. But I love the signing. I love that Held bet on himself and was willing to do that. I have an article up under our exclusive section about Bellator making waves in free agency. Now, they have let a lot of guys go over the past few years. Like Blagoy Ivanov. Like, why would you let him go? Like, why? Frodo, how do you not do everything you can? Now, I know there were a lot of visa issues there. How do you not do everything you can do to keep him? Ben Askren, how do you not try to butter him up? Which, to be honest, I get the feeling he doesn't really want to fight in America anymore. I think he's got a pretty sweet deal with one championships, and he's going to ride that out, probably getting paid very, very well. They've let a lot of Minikov and Volkov. what's up? Like they have or top level heavyweights are not easy to come by. And in my opinion, if you have Minikov, Volkov, Ivanov, and anybody else in Russia whose name ends with an OV, you want to hold on to those guys. And that was kind of the thing with Bellator for a while, Joe. They were the guys that were giving some of these European talents their first breaks.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though. That was something that was really cool because if you actually look at what's happening overseas in Europe, there's a boatload of talent there that you look and you're like, how come these guys aren't fighting in bigger shows? Like, it's just a matter of time. I'm not sure if you ever heard of the guy Conor McGregor. He was fighting over there, and people were all over Dana White. You got to sign this guy. You got to sign this guy. And Dana at one point said, who the heck is this guy? To the point there was 4 of us that are like, you should really consider this guy. And I'm talking about some pretty big media guys. I won't name names, but you know who they are pretty much. But it was like, you better check this guy out. This guy's got skill. And 1 or 2 interviews later and a few tweets later, McGregor was signed because there's a lot of McGregors out there, skill-wise, not the whole package-wise. You talk about those big boys, and Bellator, when they were doing it, was fantastic. We're starting to see all these, these heavyweights coming from, the not just the heavyweights, but there's some light heavyweights, and they were getting some North American love and stuff like that. But it is weird, man. Like you said, it's weird how some of these guys were let go. I mean, Askren in general, that's always been a weird theory because, I mean, in my conversations with him, he reminds me of, the alpha male wrestler. You know how the wrestlers, how they talk and how, it's a mano thing and I can beat you up, sort of. Not even say it to me. I'm saying like how they have that it's just the bravado that's their aura that comes out. That's like, they're just bad dudes. But Askren was always, I'm like, you have a chance to be big. You have a chance to really get, you can get to the UFC or Bellator can really do a bit more with you, but just don't play the game. Dana White used to say it about Nick Diaz. Just if he plays the game just this much, we'll sign him some way, somehow. And they would have never signed Nick Diaz if they didn't buy Strikeforce. And then Askren had the opportunity, we all know, to some way, somehow get to the UFC, and he didn't care. And like, how we have Donald Cerrone now looking back and saying things got to change? I wonder if Askren's ever going to look back and say, man, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Absolutely. Before we go, I want to talk a little bit about this ESPN WWE situation. Joe, I don't know how much you've heard about this, if at all. Are you familiar with Kevin Owens, perhaps?
Yeah.
Kevin Owens, Canadian wrestler, definitely not your prototypical WWE wrestler. He looks like the everyman. He looked even more like an everyman before he got to WWE. A guy who's worked really, really hard. English was not his first language, and you would not be able to tell that if you heard. He's one of the best speakers I've seen in wrestling in years. He won the WWE Universal Championship on Monday, and his son is a big wrestling fan. And a video emerged that Kevin's wife had posted of his son, 8-year-old son, reacting to the victory. And of course, he was thrilled. He's a giant wrestling fan. And there was an ESPN personality. I don't know how to pronounce his name. And I don't want to pronounce his name because I don't want to give him any exposure. We didn't cover it on the site because it's what the guy wants. I don't want that. But people keep asking me to talk about it. And Joe, I'll have you talk about it. And it's of the child happens to be autistic. And this guy is basically trolling wrestling fans and taking shots at the kid for not knowing that wrestling is scripted, which I'm pretty sure the kid knows by now. His dad, has these. His dad's best friend is a guy that he's been beating up on TV for the last year and a half. So I'm pretty sure he knows the score. And it's his way of, trying to steal the Colin Cowherd gimmick of, wrestling fans are booger eaters and yada, yada, yada. And he's just kept doubling down and trying to go hard on this. And he did it at the expense of an autistic 8-year-old child who was proud of his dad for accomplishing something. And he's been at it all day on his Twitter account, this dude. And he has probably wisely, when ridiculing the people that tweet him, not quoted any of the tweets that refer to the child as being autistic because he realized he screwed up. But the dude's not going to admit he screwed up. He's not going to take his loss and move on and realize he was an idiot. He's just keeping on. It's scripted. You know what? A lot of shit's scripted. Anything you've ever seen on MTV is scripted. Every movie you've ever seen, probably scripted unless it's a documentary. It's like, you know, I kind of understand it if it's a 40-year-old person that doesn't understand that wrestling isn't real. But if they don't understand it, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? It never bothered me. I've wrestled in front of 40-year-old people who didn't know that wrestling wasn't real. Actually, we did a benefit for the Southern Ohio Autism Group, and some of the people in the audience were autistic people of that age who had no idea. Good. That's one of the reasons you do it. If you go to a wrestling show, you're going to see crowds of, you know, all ages, all sizes, all colors, all shapes. It's just really weird to me that this one guy decided to pick on an 8-year-old kid, and when he found out that the kid was autistic, he just kept letting it go. Now, Joe, I know you're not a big wrestling fan, perhaps, but I mean, this is kind of a weird hill to die on, in my opinion.
This aforementioned gentleman is still employed with ESPN?
Maybe not for long.
Good.
Has 82,000 followers, which by ESPN standards is very low.
This guy, I mean, I don't know who it is. I'm not even going to bother searching it down. I'm not going to chase it down because I could care less when you talk about kids in general and a kid with autism, and that's your theory. That's what you think you're doing, and you, at the expense of a child, you don't even know the whole story. The first thing that any, I guess, sane person in the media that has that type of outlet, when you realize you screw up like that, man up, man. Man up. Who knows how many times I've screwed up. Never to that level. My screw-ups were what? Pronouncing names incorrectly or being wrong, predicting a fight or something like that. Man, sure. I used to go on live television and say, I screwed up. I'm an idiot. Whatever. To do something of that nature. What's that?
People think that it hurts their credibility to say I was wrong. It doesn't hurt your credibility. If anything, I would hope that people would respect you a little more for saying, hey, I'm taking the loss. There is nothing wrong with that guy saying, okay, I was a douchebag. I didn't know. I definitely didn't know he was autistic. I maybe should have been a little more sensitive in what I was saying. And, you know, there are situations where I think people are a little too politically correct, but I think there are also situations where people are so anti-politically correct that it goes overboard on both sides. You know what I mean? And I mean, yeah, like I said, you
can't do that at the expense of kids, though, ever. I mean, kids are innocent. They do what they do. I'm a dad. I know. Listen, we've talked about it on this show. My son is an absolute gong show. It's a mess. I've got to reel him in soccer games because he thinks he's allowed to take people's shins out. But if I was ever on doing anything on television or radio and I realized
so you told him to go for the knees instead, right?
The ball, Sean, the ball. Go after the ball, especially that you're playing co-ed and there's little girls on the other team. Go after the ball. Do not hurt anybody. So anyways, going back to the situation there, if I would have screwed up on that nature, man, you know how fast I would have begged the network to put me on SportsCenter or the 6 o'clock news or 7 o'clock news or get me on every radio station I possibly could to apologize because I'd be using my social media. Listen, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I was just doing my shtick and I went overboard. I'm sorry. I'd like give me another chance. I'll never do it again. But I'm completely sorry. I'd be contacting the family. What can I send your child that would put a smile on his face? Can I next time I'm in your area, can I just hang out with the kid? Anything, just to put a smile on that kid's face, man. That's not cool, man. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I respect Jonathan Coachman, who is a SportsCenter anchor, used to work for WWE, called the man out and said, that's not cool. I mean, I'm livid about it. I mean, my sister is autistic. Every wrestling match that I have done, we've done to benefit autism groups. That's what we do in Southern Ohio and our Kentucky area. I love doing it. That's the way I do it. I never want to make a dime off of wrestling if we can help a group like that. And I'm pissed about it. I can't imagine how Kevin Owens feels. Not to mention the work that he put in to accomplish what he did. Taking a shot at his son. And it's not even like, who cares if he's autistic? A kid. And I mean, I know that the guy had no clue. I'm positive he had no clue, any clue about Kevin Owens' son being autistic. But it's just, man, it's a child that can't defend himself. And yeah, somebody says, for the record, I've never even heard of the guy who made the comment. I hadn't either before today. His thing said NBA Insider. He must be really inside because I've never heard of him ever before. Guys, visit Fightful.com. Please register for our forum, or just register for everything. Absolutely free. You get access to our forums. You may have seen we have our daily trash talk thread going up on the page, the discuss boards. That's going to be moving to the forum area pretty soon. We want to kind of integrate those in as well. You get early access to podcasts, exclusive articles from Showdown Joe, from Vince Russo, from Brandon Howard, from myself, from the owner, Jimmy Van, all kinds of cool stuff, exclusive backstage news. I talked to CM Punk's interview, or CM Punk's one of CM Punk's teammates. That's going up on Sunday. Got some exclusive stuff from Josh Barnett talking about Fabricio Verdum and Stipe Miocic ahead of UFC 204. All kinds of cool stuff at Fightful.com. MMA, pro wrestling, boxing. If you don't like any of those, you can filter them out on the main page. Lots of fun stuff happening at Fightful.com. I am back on Friday afternoon with Vince Russo, talking all kinds of stuff, especially Kevin Owens and the ESPN situation, I'm sure. Joe, anything you want to tell the people before we go?
No, but I do want Sean Ross Sapp's opinion on an article that I submitted to Fightful.com. And I stated Damian Maia, the waiting game. And I made it clear that the minute Stephen Thompson and Tyron Woodley, if that fight is announced, because that's pretty much what we're going to, what's likely going to be announced, that Damian Maia should potentially also commence a training camp at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because he may be selected if somebody gets injured.
I think that should always be the case with title fights. Always be the case with title fights. They should pay a fighter, basically a retainer, to be in a camp, not their show money, not their win money, but pay them something to be prepared. Or they could just do the thing like where they schedule them on the show, but against maybe a tune-up opponent, so to speak, and have them ready. I think that should absolutely be a thing, especially given the fact that every single show up until, I think maybe 202, was the first event that didn't have a champion or former champion, a pay-per-view this year, completely fall out. Even if the card didn't completely fall out on its own, because there was one that was turned from a pay-per-view to a TV card. I absolutely agree, Joe.
With that note, thank you very much for your time. Thank you to all the viewers. Yeah, click on that On It link. Yes, I still have to go get some On It, or some Alpha Brain. And until I do that, I apologize to On It and to Sean. I've got to order some ASAP because I heard it's fantastic. Sean always talks about it, but I got to get going on that. And I apologize, Sean.
Myself and my fiance took that new mood last night, slept like babies. Until Friday, you guys, we're out.